Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast series What's Your Story, an initiative by Sashakt, the Entrepreneurship Committee of DMS IIT Delhi. Today, we have with us a prominent entrepreneur who has founded large successful companies like Pine Labs, GlobalLogic, and Sunstone, Mr. Rajul Garg. Sir is a computer science graduate from IIT Delhi and is the founder and managing partner at Leo Capital. Prior to Leo Capital, Sir was a prominent angel investor and was an early investor in companies such as Meesho, Reify Health, and 1MG. It is a pleasure to have you here with us, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
With this, we would like to start our session. Sir, what was your first business venture? Can you tell us something about it? Like, how did you get the idea? Who were your teammates? And how did you fund your venture?
So my first business venture was actually Pine Labs, and this was started when I was still studying at IIT Delhi in my fourth year. My partner in this was my co-founder Tarun Upadhyay, and he was in MCA, so he was in a 5-year course, and I was in a 4-year course. So he took an extra year to graduate and formally join. So this was around payments, and this was 97, 98. So this was very early years for digital payments, and how how the market has evolved now, obviously over the last 23 years. And the first version of these solutions were closed loop solutions. Like, for example, oil companies had launched what is called a petro card. What was called a petro card then, where you could recharge your card, and you could pay with that card in their petrol pumps like BPCL, IOCL. It started with even single petrol pumps, group of petrol pumps, and over a period of time that became Pine Labs, which was a full open-ended payment solution that you can pay anywhere, and became larger and larger. So that was my first company. I think the inspiration came from I think more opportunity. I would say we knew people who were trying to get into payment solutions at that point of time in 97, 98, and were looking for software. So I'd been approached by folks like that, and we just got plugged into that and kept building and building over years. But the original inspiration to become an entrepreneur, because that was also early years of entrepreneurship, came from actually my roommate at IIT, Amit Kumar. His uncle was the founder of NewGen, and he had once come to visit him, and was talking about entrepreneurship and things like that. So that was the first time I'd even heard of the concept in 96, 97. And I think that was the original seeds of entrepreneurship in my head. So hopefully through this talk and other people, as they hear this, hopefully they'll sow some more seeds of entrepreneurship in people, because that's how it happened with me.
How would you describe your life in your 20s?
I became an entrepreneur right after my BTech, and I was just 20, 21 at that point of time. So 20s went by very, very quickly, with sort of one business after the other, hiring, appraisals, customers, things like that, things that you don't normally expect to do in your 20s.
What is your philosophy of life, and what drives you to keep following your passion and wake up and excel every day?
I feel that there's so many things which are not in your control these days that you can't be too unhappy about your past or unhappy about your future. But I feel the key is to really continue executing in the present, and do the best you can. And I think if you can be the best version of what you can be and keep going like that, I feel you would have lived a fulfilling life.
Sir, who has been the biggest influence in your life, and what role did your family play in your success?
I would say that in my case, I have not had one influencer that I can name, but over a period of time, I've managed to cultivate several influencers who I have looked up to and who have learned different things from. And I'm more of a person who gets influenced by people who are immediately around me versus people who, let's say, you read about in books or you read books from. Like, for example, I've read Gandhi and I'm influenced by him, but not as much as by people who I'm working with on a day-to-day basis, let's say, right? Because I'm experiencing how they're taking decisions, how they're going about life on an everyday basis. Now I'm greatly influenced by many of our entrepreneurs. I see some of them bringing such passion to their business, that's infectious. I feel, that's a way to be, and I'm learning from them. Part of your question about family, I was fortunate to have a really supportive family. So I got married in 2001, and my wife Rabani took a lot of, I mean, she took on all the load of the home, building the home and things like that. And I think let me be free to pursue some of these entrepreneurial journeys, which I think I was not conscious about it at that time. But later on, as years went by, I became more conscious about that. So I think so that's definitely been a huge help in some of these early successes that I was able to single-mindedly focus. I think also my parents, I would just like to say, always had like a really strong confidence in their children's ability for whatever reason. So they were always like they never questioned, me or my brother, like what we would do, would we be successful or not, which I think made us feel more confident of whatever, we were doing.
How, according to you, can entrepreneurs evaluate their idea, and what do you look for in a startup before investing?
So we make very early stage investments. So when you're looking at early stage investments like that, I think there is a science component to it, and there is a little bit of an art component to it. The science component to it, I would say, is well understood. I think some of the components are, for example, large market size. Especially in our world, are you solving a problem that is big enough, and can you scale a business and make it meaningful, from a venture perspective? So I think market timing, scale are very important determinators. Team, of course, is extremely important. Is that team committed to that cause? Do they have some depth? Have they put in the hard work to be able to understand the nuances of that business? And then in our case, because we come in early, we also look very carefully at like a 0 to 1 journey. So I think what we've seen is that a 0 to 1 is a slightly different journey from, let's say, 1 to 10. The first year or two of how you get stuck in and build a business is a little bit different and needs different attitude, aptitude, skills, strategy to make that happen. So I think these are the few things that we look for.
What do you look for while forming a co-founding team for yourself when you were starting out? And even when you are evaluating ideas for investment, what do you look for in a team?
If you look at teams and startup journey, then it's a long journey. It's startups can go 8, 10 years, 15 years. So it's a long time that it takes to make a successful company. And the amount of time that you spend with your team is actually much higher in most cases that you spend, let's say, with your spouse. So it's an important one, and it's a combination of one, I would say, just camaraderie and the fact that you like each other. So I think some history with your co-founders, I feel, is important. Like, I think the second would be just complementary skills if you can get them. So, for example, if you look at any startup, then you need somebody, for example, let's say, who's doing the technology, somebody more on the commercial side, taking the product to market, maybe somebody on the operational side, running the trains, right? So, I mean, those are three big heads. I think technology, go-to-market, and operations for most startups these days. So if you can cover some of them, ideally 2 of the founders bring those skills to the table, maybe 3 sometimes, it helps a lot in early years. I think the other thing I would say is things like founder market fit. So I guess a question to be asked is why you as a founding team will succeed in the business that you've chosen. What is even if it's not an unfair advantage, but what is the advantage that you have? I think those are a few things I would say, so camaraderie, skill coverage, a little bit of why you are the right team to succeed in that particular space.
One of the recent reports suggested that business optimism in India is at near 8 years high, with so many startups coming up and getting such a high valuations. Like, do you see this as an over optimism, or are you betting on India's growth story? Like,
So my answer to both of those questions is yes. So we are betting very much on India growth story. I think India is a large democracy. We have a young population. We have growing internet penetration, digitization. It's an aspirational middle class. When you put it all together, there's real GDP growth happening at a macro level. I think we're an entrepreneurial people. I do think there is a real India growth story, given the size of the population that we are, generally good with technology and things like that. But I think at the same time, there is definitely over optimism today, which is reflected in prices of everything. I mean, not just startup valuations. Even if you look at public companies, so many IPOs have happened this year, and the market caps they have. I think all across the board, when I put it all together, there is generally in the tech side, particularly over optimism, and which is reflected in things being priced much higher than they, you could argue, than they actually are. And I do think we are in an over optimistic stage today. But I'm not complaining. I mean, it's good for all of us as well. There is more money, there's more liquidity. People can try to be more innovative. People can try to build better businesses, all that good stuff. So I think as an entrepreneur, I would leverage this opportunity to think bigger and to think more creatively.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you might have done differently?
So I think in any journey, and especially in entrepreneurship, there is definitely a lot of things, big and small. I would say the big ones I've learned. I think if I have to take top couple of things, because it's hard to distill down too many. One is that I've seen a lot more businesses fail or not succeed as much because of their go-to-market plan versus the fact that they don't have a good product. So I think we are naturally a little bit more building oriented as entrepreneurs, that we want to build, and we assume at some certain level that if we build a good product, it'll sell itself, but it doesn't happen that way. I think thinking of the market and building it to the market need, and scaling it, and taking it to the market in an efficient, scalable, high velocity way is a very challenging task. And I see far more entrepreneurs failing there than actually in building the product. So that would be number one. So I would advise. The second, I would say, is just the early team that you build, and not just early as you build out the team. It's a cliche, but that really does make a lot of difference. Some of the early employees that you get, or partners that you get, co-founders, department heads, they can either take you in a very different orbit. I mean, they can give you a lot of acceleration in what you're trying to do, but at the same time, they can also hold you back significantly if you get the wrong people into your business. So I think those are the two areas I would say, if I had to distill down to a couple. Those are the two I would pick, which I see I would have done differently in many cases, and I see our current entrepreneurs also.
So, do you think a person with no corporate experience can start a venture successfully?
I think, like I definitely, when I started, I didn't have any corporate experience. I started right from college. I do think some years of work experience helps, maybe 2, 3 years, 4 years, because you learn a little bit about how to work with people. You also gain a few years. At the same time, there is a lot of advantage of starting young. A lot of advantages of starting young. One, your costs are very low. If you're a single person starting right out of college, you can live pretty frugally. Even today, I would argue, I don't know, maybe you can live on 20,000 rupees, if you're a single person for a couple of years. So because your salaries that also you're giving up is lower versus, let's say, when you start at 35, then you have typically like a family, kids, home loan, car loan, all these things. And it's much harder. Your minimum requirements are high and your opportunity cost is high. So definitely easier starting younger. There is an element of discovery and figuring out things of how you go about it. Unfortunately, early stages of entrepreneurship are still very hard to put it into, like I said, a recipe or a process. Now, there are some learnings and, you can read about it, you can talk to people, but the failure rate is still very high. And I don't think many corporates or management schools prepare you, for being an entrepreneur. So I think it's a balancing act, I would say. I don't think it's clear that, you have to spend 10, 15 years. I think maybe a couple of years and whenever you're ready, but still young is an ideal time to start, in my view.
We wanted to know what is the greatest risk according to you have taken so far?
I think being an entrepreneur yourself basically puts all your eggs in one basket, right? So I think that is far riskier. Like, for example, what I did with, let's say, Pine Labs, I would say it was quite risky because it could have gone anyway. I would have spent maybe 4 or 5 years, not gotten anywhere. I've seen entrepreneurs. It's not just financial, right? You may not make money, for example, which is okay. You may find another job or something like that. But it's also emotionally very draining. When you put 4 or 5 years of your life behind something running, and let's say you don't see success, and when markets don't react like that, and let's say you don't succeed to your own expectation, it can be very draining. So I think those are the real risks, if you ask me, that you're taking as an entrepreneur, because I think financially, if you're you're going to be okay. But I think I have definitely seen cases now where people lose their sort of health and wellness, lose confidence, become emotionally drained, and hence they're never able to find their way, in the mainstream world at all. So I think those are the real risks.
Coming to the last question of the session, so what's the one piece of advice you would like to give our young aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
Prepare yourself for longevity, and that would mean getting into things with slightly longer term view, working at them, keeping a track of your own well-being, whether it's health, whether it's family, whether it's financial well-being, so things like that. So I think just understanding that it's a marathon and it's not a 100-meter dash.
So first is, who's your favorite sports person?
MS Dhoni.
What did you dream of being as a kid?
Gamer. I thought of being a gamer, video gamer.
That is exciting. One superpower you'd like to have?
I think it's probably flying, because you get to see the whole world and get a bird's eye view. If I could pick one, I would be flying.
Okay. One place you would love to visit?
I always love to visit IIT, I would say. I think I have not done enough. I've only been there a few times, since I graduated, even though I don't live too far off. But I always enjoy being there and just being in the campus, wind tunnel, looking around, looking at sort of all the college kids. So I think it is in my top places to go to.
Your favorite cuisine?
All Asian, like South Asian, Chinese, Japanese, South and East Asian, Vietnamese, Thai, all that.
One movie you would recommend?
I would say I really like The Shawshank Redemption. If I had to pick a Hollywood movie, I enjoyed Three Idiots again a lot. I know it was kind of a little bit few years back.
How do you like to spend your leisure time?
I'm a lazy guy, so I would say, just chilling, watching TV, sleeping is good use of time at this age, I think. But spending time with kids, I think those would be some of the top activities.
One most used app on your phone?
Isn't it WhatsApp for everyone in India? I think I don't think you can live without WhatsApp at this point.
Last question, sir. Fictional character you can personally relate to?
So I think Obelix I really like, and the way he go about keeping things simple and achieving a lot just by keeping things simple.
Those are some great answers, sir. So this brings us to the end of our session today. It was a pleasure hosting you, sir, and we are sure that the viewers would have many key takeaways from the video. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to interact with you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the discussion, and all the best to you all and all the viewers who may watch it eventually.